The soup was cold again. Not because it had been sitting too long, she brought it to the table cold. "It's gazpacho," she said without looking at me, scrolling through something with a little smirk. "It's chicken noodle," I replied, poking at it with my spoon. The noodles clumped like they had trauma. "Don't be dramatic, Elijah. That was 3 Tuesdays ago, and I still remember it better than my birthday." But honestly, it wasn't about the soup. It was about the fact that every meal had started feeling like a test I didn't study for. That every "hey, how was your day?" became an invitation for her to say fine and then scroll through her phone like I was background noise in a dentist's office. I know. I should have left when she told me I was too emotionally available. Or when she rolled her eyes the night I asked if she still loved me and replied, "Why are you always in your feelings?" But I didn't. I sat in that freezing kitchen, slurping passive aggression, pretending everything was normal while she texted someone she claimed was just a friend at midnight. You ever hear someone giggle into a pillow while lying next to you? You ever convince yourself it's a dream? The lies weren't big. That's the thing. They were small, sharp ones that cut over time. Like when she said she couldn't go with me to my uncle's memorial because she forgot she made brunch plans. Or when she said she was working late but her shared location said otherwise 14 miles off in the direction of some man's apartment I never met but had nightmares about. I once found a single, curly hair on her coat. "I'm bald. We don't have pets." Her response? "Stop being weird, Elijah. It's probably from the laundromat. We have in-unit laundry." And yet I stayed. Every day I convinced myself she'd remember the way we used to talk until midnight about nothing. That she'd put her phone down for 5 minutes and ask me something. Anything. Even, "Did you take the trash out?" would have made my week. But instead I got, "Can we not do this now?" "Ugh, you always need something." "I'm just tired. Always tired. Always distracted. Always somewhere else, mentally or physically or emotionally. Anywhere but here." Until one night I decided not to ask anymore. Not to check her phone when she left the room. Not to track her Uber receipts. Not to analyze her tone. Instead, I gave her a gift. Not flowers. Not an apology for being needy. I gave her nothing. I stopped speaking. Stopped waiting for her to care. Stopped asking questions I already knew the answers to. And guess what? She didn't even notice. Not the silence. Not the untouched dinner. Not the fact that I started sleeping on the couch. You'd think that would hurt. But it was the most peaceful week of our relationship. And then on Friday morning she screamed. Not because I left. Because I'd set her coffee too close to her phone and the steam fogged the screen. That was the last sound she made that actually acknowledged my existence. That morning felt different. Not dramatically so, there wasn't some grand thunderstorm or eerie omen, just an odd stillness that made my skin crawl. She didn't yell at me for using the wrong milk in her coffee and she didn't slam the bathroom door after her shower like she usually did. She hummed. Softly. Like she was finally happy, which only confirmed what I was already suspecting. She was happiest when I was invisible. It wasn't even noon when her phone buzzed across the table. Normally she'd be quick to flip it over, but this time she let it ring. Maybe she thought I wouldn't care anymore. Maybe she was right. But I did care. I just didn't care in the way she wanted. I wasn't angry. I was numb. I stared at the screen, watching a name flash that I hadn't seen before, Clay. Not work Clay. Not cousin Clay. Just Clay with a fox emoji like they shared inside jokes about sneaking around. I knew I could ask her about it, but what was the point? She'd either sigh, roll her eyes, or call me paranoid. Probably all three. So instead, I decided to play dumb. That was my new role in the house, the clueless one. The doormat. The man who used to love making her laugh and now just existed to be ignored. That night, she went out again. She didn't say where, didn't say with who. She left her dinner untouched and kissed the air next to my cheek like I was some awkward neighbor she barely knew. I didn't ask questions. I just cleaned up the dishes and listened as the door clicked shut behind her. Then I opened her laptop. I know how that sounds. I know it's wrong. But when you spend weeks being made to feel like a ghost in your own home, ethics start to lose their shape. I didn't go digging through every folder. I just opened her browser and it betrayed her within seconds. Google Maps, last visited location, Waterbird Hotel. Instagram DMs, hidden messages folder. Names I didn't recognize. One in particular. Clay. And then the photo. I clicked it like my body moved without me. There she was. In that same green sweater she swore she accidentally shrunk in the wash, pressed up against some guy's chest, smiling in a way I hadn't seen in months. Her eyes looked alive. Wide. Mischievous. Like how she used to look at me. Like I was her whole world. Once. I didn't cry. I didn't break anything. I just closed the screen, powered it off, and sat there with a strange pressure in my chest that I couldn't name. Not heartbreak. Not anger. More like clarity. Cold, final clarity. She got home at 12:41 a.m. Hey, she said, kicking off her boots and yawning. You're still up. I couldn't sleep, I replied, keeping my voice even. She didn't notice the look in my eyes. Or maybe she did and didn't care. She brushed past me, smelling like cheap cologne and someone else's skin, and headed straight for the bathroom. I watched her walk away, not with bitterness, but fascination. Like I was observing someone who'd already moved out emotionally and just forgot to pack their things. I wasn't even sad anymore. Just stunned. Stunned that this is what it had all become. A quiet war. A performance. A routine soaked in lies and avoidance. When she fell asleep, I stood at the edge of the bed for a long time. I watched her breathe. I wondered if she ever did the same for me, watched me, cared for me, thought about how she was breaking the very man who once built her back from her own ruins. She never even flinched. And that's when I knew I was no longer mourning a relationship. I was grieving the man I used to be. The next day, I stayed home from work. Called in emotionally unavailable, which ironically is the phrase she'd once used on me during an argument I never finished. I just couldn't face anyone, not my manager, not the coffee shop barista, not the neighbor who always asks why Tanya doesn't wave back anymore. I stared out the window for hours that morning, drinking lukewarm tea I didn't finish, listening to the ticking of the wall clock like it was counting down something I couldn't yet name. Maybe the end of us. Maybe just the end of me pretending. Around noon, she texted, running errands, might be late. No period. Just casual, cool, distant. Like I was a roommate she owed a curfew update to. I replied with a thumbs up. I don't know why. Some pathetic reflex of politeness, like I still believed I could hold this sinking ship together by being agreeable. I couldn't. The water was up to my chest and she was already on another boat. That night, I didn't try to talk to her. I didn't cook. I didn't make her tea with oat milk or fold the laundry or even ask if she'd eaten. I just let her drift around the apartment like a stranger who happened to know where we kept the charger cords. She stayed in the bedroom for hours, door closed, laughing softly at something on her phone. I sat in the hallway, ear pressed to the drywall, listening like a child hiding during hide and seek, hoping someone would find me. But no one was looking. That's when it happened. A soft ding from the kitchen. Her tablet was there, plugged in. She never used it much, but lately it had become her secret weapon, a decoy device where she could speak freely, thinking I was too pathetic to notice or too spineless to check. I wasn't looking for anything. Truly, I wasn't. But the message was already on the lock screen before I even touched the screen. Clay, still tasting you. Friday again? Winky face? My ears went hot. My heart didn't race, it throbbed. Like it wanted out of my chest. I just stared at the message like it would dissolve if I blinked enough times. Friday again? That was 2 days from now. They had plans. They were already operating in a future that didn't include me. And for the first time, something shifted in me. Not rage. Not revenge. Just readiness. I realized that she didn't want me to find out. Not because she respected me, but because she didn't want to deal with the hassle of my reaction. I wasn't a person to her anymore, I was an inconvenience she hadn't figured out how to remove cleanly. I didn't sleep that night. I lay on the couch, staring at the ceiling, replaying the sound of her laughter behind the bedroom door over and over again. Each giggle was another nail in the coffin of our relationship, and yet there I was, still holding the hammer, wondering if it was somehow my fault. And then something unexpected happened. At 2:12 a.m., she came out of the bedroom. Not quietly. Not in shame. She walked into the kitchen like a woman getting a glass of water, calm, casual, wrapped in the robe I bought her for our second anniversary. She didn't even look surprised to see me still awake. "You're not asleep?" she asked, not even meeting my eyes. I shook my head. She leaned against the fridge, yawning. "You've been acting weird lately." I opened my mouth to speak, but nothing came out. There was nothing left to say that hadn't already been disrespected and dismissed. So I just said the only thing I could. I saw the message. Her entire body tensed, just for a second. Not long enough for someone else to notice, but long enough for someone like me to register it. She blinked, shrugged, and turned away to grab a bottle of water. "What message?" she said, pretending to twist the cap even though it was already open. I let the silence sit. Let it stretch so far it started to tear. "Clay," I said. She paused. Not long. Just enough. Then looked at me, finally, with that tired, condescending expression that made me feel 12 years old and stupid. "Oh, that," she said. "That?" As if it was a parking ticket. A mislick. A typo. "Don't make a scene," she added. I haven't said anything in weeks, I replied, my voice cracking. Exactly, she said, sipping her water. That's the problem. You let everything fester. You could have just talked to me. Talked to her? About what? The fact that she was cheating and hoped I wouldn't notice? The way she made me feel like a ghost in my own home? How every day felt like performance art in avoiding honesty. She walked past me without waiting for a response. As she closed the bedroom door behind her, she added, you need to work on your confidence. It's really unattractive. And that was the last thing she said to me as my girlfriend. Because by sunrise, I had already decided I wasn't going to fight for her love. I was going to erase my presence, just like she erased my worth. I didn't pack a bag. That would have been too obvious. Too loud. And she didn't deserve a dramatic exit. No. I wanted her to feel it in increments, the same way I felt her disappear one excuse at a time. It began with socks. I started by taking a few pairs from the dresser. The ones she never liked because they had holes, but I wore anyway out of comfort. Then I removed my shaving kit from the bathroom. Not all at once, just a toothbrush one day, cologne the next. Slowly. Methodically. Like reverse nesting. She didn't notice. I stopped refilling the filtered water. Didn't refill the coffee grounds. Didn't fold her laundry when it came out of the dryer. I even left the trash just slightly overflowing for 3 days straight. She said nothing. We barely spoke. When we did, it was like exchanging updates at a broken vending machine. There's mail on the counter. You left the fridge open again. I think the Wi-Fi is slow. No, how was your day? No, are you okay? She stopped pretending. And I stopped hoping. We were roommates bound by rent and inertia. I began sleeping with my socks on, not because I was cold, but because I knew she hated it. A petty rebellion, sure. But when you're emotionally starved for so long, even small defiance tastes like a feast. Then came the Friday she said she'd be working late again. The same Friday Clay mentioned in the message I wasn't supposed to see. She wore her hair curled, her lashes done, and that lipstick I hadn't seen in months, the one she once called her going out war paint. She left the apartment like she was walking into a movie scene. I didn't ask where she was going. I didn't offer a fake smile. I just nodded and said, be safe. I watched the door close behind her like it was the final scene of a film I hated but kept watching anyway. Then I stood in our bedroom, alone, and stared at her side of the closet. All those empty hangers. That's when I realized something she never told me. She had already been taking her things too. Gradually. Her expensive perfume? Gone. Her passport? Gone. The heels she only wore for special occasions? Missing. She was preparing to vanish just like I was. And yet we both kept showing up, pretending we weren't dissolving each other day by day. That night I drove. I didn't know where I was going. I just drove aimlessly through the city, circling blocks, watching the neon signs of closed diners flicker like some divine signal. I pulled into a 24-hour gas station, bought a Gatorade I didn't want, and sat in the parking lot for over an hour, listening to the rain tap the windshield like a clock counting down to something I couldn't see. I texted my sister, who lives in the next town over. Can I crash with you a while? She replied 2 minutes later with just 3 words, took you long enough. It stung. Not because she was wrong, but because she was so right. Everyone around me had been watching this unraveling for months. I was the last one to admit we were done, the last one clinging to the fantasy that maybe love could outlast being neglected. When I got back to the apartment around 1 a.m., she wasn't home. I didn't wait up. I didn't check her location. I didn't rehearse a confrontation in my head. I just lay on the couch, not sleeping, not thinking, just there. Like furniture. Like I'd finally accepted what she had known for a long time. I didn't matter anymore. Not to her. And still, I didn't leave that night. I needed one more thing before I vanished completely. I needed to see what she would do when I finally said nothing at all. Because even silence in the right moment can be louder than betrayal. The silence had become sacred to me. I clung to it like a wounded animal hiding under the porch. I no longer needed her words. They were hollow, mechanical, shaped to deflect. But her silence? That was honest. It told me everything. She came home just past 2 in the morning. I heard the key scratch at the lock like she'd forgotten how to enter her own life. She tried to walk quietly, tiptoeing like she was still a teenager sneaking in after curfew. But the floorboards betrayed her. She reeked of someone else's night, a cocktail of musk, sweat, and cheap cologne trying to mask something more raw. She didn't check the living room. Didn't whisper hello. She went straight to the bedroom. And I lay there on the couch, eyes wide open, staring at the ceiling fan spinning above me like it might have answers. My fists weren't clenched. My heart wasn't racing. I was long past the stage of boiling anger. I was studying her now, documenting every move in my mind like I was writing a report no one would ever read. I heard the bedroom door click, then the shuffle of her clothes hitting the floor. Then, eventually, the rhythmic creak of the bed as she shifted. I imagined him, Clay, wherever he was, probably drunk on both whatever they drank and the power of stealing someone else's partner. But what broke me wasn't what she did while awake. It was what she said in her sleep. At 3:27 a.m., I walked past the bedroom door to use the bathroom. It was slightly ajar. And from inside, I heard her murmur, soft, dreamy, distant. "Don't stop. Clay." She giggled. I froze. Not like in the movies. No tears. No dramatic gasp. I just stood there, hearing her breath deepen again into sleep, while a part of me, something small but essential, finally cracked. I walked to the bathroom and sat on the closed toilet seat, my hands trembling. Not from rage, not even from sadness, but from the weight of reality confirming itself in the cruelest way. She wasn't hiding it anymore. She didn't even need to lie, not when the truth had become casual enough to whisper while dreaming. I sat there for nearly 40 minutes. When I returned to the couch, I passed by the kitchen table and noticed something I'd missed when I came in, a receipt. It was from a rooftop bar across town. One we talked about going to for years. She said it was too pricey back then, said it wasn't her vibe. Yet there it was, an order for 2 expensive cocktails, a dessert platter, and a bottle of wine. Signed with a little heart drawn on the tip line. I don't know what it was about that heart. Maybe because it looked like the one she used to put next to my name in old texts. Or maybe because it felt like someone had stabbed me with it, perfectly curved edges and all. I snapped a photo of the receipt. I didn't know why. Maybe I wanted proof for myself, in case she ever tried to rewrite the story. Maybe I just wanted one piece of paper that admitted she cared. Just not about me. The next morning, she was already in the kitchen when I got up. She wore one of my shirts. The ones she used to steal because she said they smelled like safety. I wondered if she still said that to him. She looked up from her phone and smiled like nothing had happened. "Morning," she said, sliding me a cup of coffee. I didn't answer, just sat down across from her. Stirred the coffee twice and didn't sip it. She didn't ask if I was okay. Didn't seem to notice I hadn't shaved, hadn't slept, hadn't been myself for months. Or maybe she did, but it just didn't rank high enough to mention. She looked down at her phone again and smirked, typing fast. Her fingers were flying. "You going out today?" she asked. "Yeah," I said quietly. "I think I need to get some things." "Cool," she said, not asking what kind. That was it. No curiosity, no awareness. Just a woman too distracted by whatever Clay was texting to notice that the man across from her was disappearing in real time. But I wasn't just disappearing now. I was planning how to leave behind something she would notice. Because ghosts don't just vanish. Sometimes they leave cold spots in the room. And I was about to become unforgettable. She thought I left to run errands. I didn't. I left to rehearse how to disappear. There's a weird kind of freedom in being ignored for so long. When someone stops seeing you, you're free to move in the shadows, unnoticed. That's what I did. I drove to the storage unit I'd quietly rented 3 days earlier under a fake name. Only a 5 by 10 space, nothing fancy. But it was enough for what I was taking with me. Not my clothes, most of those were hers by now anyway. Not my tech either. She'd taken control of the Wi-Fi, the subscriptions, the passwords. What I took instead were the things she forgot I owned. The first edition novels my father left me. The set of paintbrushes I'd stopped using because she said they smelled like chemicals. The box of photographs she once called junk. It wasn't junk to me. It was proof I existed before her. And that I could exist again after. I packed everything into the trunk of my car with the same precision surgeons use. Every item a scalpel carving away the version of me she had rewritten. And as I closed the trunk, I felt something shift. Not power, I wasn't that lucky, but control. A quiet reclaiming of the life she drained in fragments. Excuse after excuse. When I returned home that evening, she was on the couch watching some dating reality show. Legs curled under her like she hadn't just moaned another man's name in her sleep 48 hours ago. She looked up briefly, gave me a half smile and said, "Hey, grab dinner? Already ate." I lied. She nodded, disinterested, and went back to watching beautiful strangers pretend to fall in love. I stood behind her for a few moments, watching the flicker of the TV on her face, wondering how many layers deep her apathy really went, wondering if she'd even noticed the missing books, the blank space where my record player used to be, the fact that one of her rings was gone, the one she said she hated but never stopped wearing. I'd taken it, not to keep, just to see if she'd ask. She didn't. The next morning I made coffee. Not for her. For me. 1 cup. Just once. She came into the kitchen in that same faded t-shirt she used to wear when we were actually happy. Back when she'd sit on the counter and talk to me about her dreams, not hide them in other men's arms. She opened the fridge, looked around, and muttered, "Did we run out of almond milk?" "Yeah," I said. "I'll get more later." She shrugged, grabbed a protein bar, and left the room. Not a thank you, not even a glance. I opened my phone and checked the calendar. One more day, just one. Then it would be Friday, her clay day, the day she worked late. I had no interest in confrontation. I wasn't going to explode or throw accusations. What I wanted now, more than closure, more than dignity, was to vanish in a way that she would feel, because she thought I'd beg. She thought I'd scream or cry or chase her down a hallway in some pathetic movie moment. But instead, I was going to do the one thing she never expected. I was going to leave without permission. That afternoon, while she took a nap, I placed the ring I'd taken, her ring, inside the fridge on top of the almond milk. Not out of spite, but because I wanted her to find it by accident, like a ghost had passed through the kitchen and left behind a trace. I removed myself from our joint bank account, canceled the utilities I had opened under my name, deleted the shared cloud storage. I didn't change passwords. That would have made her ask questions. I wanted her to come home one day and slowly, terrifyingly realize I was gone. Not in rage, not in pain, but in silence, like mist that burned off by noon. That night, I went to bed in the guest room. She didn't ask why. Maybe she assumed we were just off that week again. She didn't know it was our last night under the same roof. Because while she drifted off texting Clay, I stayed up rehearsing the goodbye I'd never say out loud. I didn't sleep the night before I left. Not out of fear or doubt, but because I wanted to memorize everything one last time. The chip tile by the sink she never noticed. The faint scratch on the bedroom door from that time I came home drunk and tried to unlock it with my car key. The way the hallway light flickered for 2 seconds before glowing steady. That morning I acted like it was any other day. I made her coffee, oat milk, no sugar, just the way she used to like it before she started preferring the ones Clay bought her. She didn't thank me. She barely acknowledged I was in the room. She was too busy fixing her eyeliner in the microwave reflection. "Got a lot going on today," she mumbled. I nodded. She grabbed her purse, checked her phone, and headed toward the door. Then paused. "You're acting weird," she said. "Like, I don't know, weird energy." I smiled. "Probably just tired." "Yeah, well, don't overthink stuff. I'll be back late. Take your time," I said. And I meant it. When the door shut behind her, I sat in the chair for a long time. The one by the window she hated because it creaked when you leaned back. I leaned into it on purpose, just once, letting it groan like a final goodbye. Then I stood. And I got to work. I had packed the night before. The essentials were already in my car, hidden under a blanket. But the part one hadn't done, the part one wanted to savor, was the erasing. Not dramatic, not destructive. Just enough to make her feel the emptiness when it hit. I removed the toothbrush I had secretly hidden in the guest bathroom, the one I started using when I couldn't stand brushing beside her anymore. I took my shoes from the rack, but left the box. I wiped my email off the shared tablet. Disconnected my Spotify from the smart speaker she never learned to use. Removed my name from the lease, left the paperwork on the table with a yellow sticky note that simply said, "Done." She wouldn't understand it right away. That's what made it so perfect. She would walk in later, distracted and satisfied from whatever she and Clay were doing, probably smelling like his aftershave and her own lies, and it would all look normal. At first. Until she realized the books were gone. Until she noticed her messages were undelivered. Until she opened the fridge and saw the almond milk with my old Polaroid wedged behind it. A photo she once took of me laughing on the balcony holding 2 mugs and wearing that hideous mustard-colored sweater she claimed made me look like a retired beekeeper. She used to say that picture made me look happy in the wild. I left it there because I wanted her to remember that she killed that man, the one who laughed so easily. I didn't leave a note. She didn't deserve a monologue. She'd twisted enough of my words into weapons, diluted enough apologies to use as get-out-of-jail-free cards. I owed her nothing but absence. And that's what I gave her. At 5:11 p.m. I walked out. I didn't slam the door. I didn't look back. I just pulled it closed behind me, heard the latch catch, and walked down the stairs like I was leaving a museum that had nothing left to teach me. I drove without music, without a destination plugged into GPS. Just kept going. And somewhere around the county line, my phone buzzed. Tanya, 3 unread messages. Hey, did you move something from the shelf? Did you unplug the speaker? Where are you? I stared at the screen, watching the dots flicker as she typed again. Then I put the phone face down and kept driving. The first few messages would confuse her. The next few would probably anger her. Then, eventually, she'd start searching. Not for me, but for her version of me. The one who folded when she snapped, apologized when she sighed, filled the silences she created. But that man was gone, and all she'd be left with was the echo of everything she avoided. I wasn't bitter. I wasn't heroic. I was just done. I didn't cry when I crossed the state line. I thought I might. I had braced for it. Had even tucked a pack of tissues into the glove box like I was preparing for a funeral. But the tears never came. What did come, though, was quiet. A kind of silence that didn't scream or accuse or hang heavy like it did in our apartment. This silence felt like stepping into a forest where everything had finally stopped shaking. Where I could hear my own thoughts again, and they weren't asking, "What did I do wrong?" They were asking, "What comes next?" I stayed at my sister's for the first week. Kelsey didn't ask too many questions. She just cleared the guest room, stocked the fridge with things I liked, and left a handwritten note on the door. "You're not broken. You're just bruised. Heal here." Every night, I expected some sort of blow-up from Tanya. A phone call, a voicemail, maybe one of those long, rambling emails filled with guilt and half-formed apologies. But they never came. First, it hurt. The silence felt like confirmation that she never cared. Not even enough to chase me. But then, something shifted. One morning, I was making coffee in Kelsey's kitchen, and I realized I wasn't thinking about what Tanya would say or do next. I was thinking about the color of the sunrise, about how the steam curled off my mug like breath in winter, about the song playing on the radio, one I hadn't heard in years, and how I actually let it play all the way through without associating it with her. That's when I knew. She didn't chase me because she expected I'd come back. That was always the dance. She'd neglect me, I'd bend, she'd look surprised I was hurt, and I'd end up apologizing just for needing something real. But this time, the dance ended without warning. And the silence wasn't rejection. It was release. Over the following weeks, I started rebuilding things I'd forgotten I loved. I dusted off my old sketchbook, took walks without needing a destination, reconnected with friends I hadn't seen in years because she said they were draining. One of them, Jonah, invited me to a small gathering at his place. I almost said no. The idea of sitting around strangers and pretending to be okay felt exhausting. But something told me to go. Not to find a distraction. I wasn't ready for that. But to remind myself that life existed outside the walls she built around me. And I'm glad I went. Because that night, sitting on a porch with people who laughed easily and asked me about me. Not us, I caught myself smiling without realizing it. Real, stupid, lopsided smiling. It felt unfamiliar at first, like trying on a jacket you forgot you owned. But it fit. Eventually, Tanya did message me. 2 weeks later. Just one sentence. "I don't get it. You really just left?" I read it once. Let the words sit there like bait. Then I deleted it. No reply. Because yes, I left. But not out of vengeance. Not to punish her. I left because I'd spent too long proving my love to someone who never earned it. I left because I didn't want to be the man who begged anymore. And I left because somewhere deep down, I finally believed that I deserved more than being tolerated. Now, months later, I'm not healed. Not completely. Some mornings still feel heavy. Some songs still hit the wrong nerve. But I'm getting there. I signed a lease on a small studio near the river. The walls are blank. The fridge hums too loudly. And I still sleep on a borrowed mattress. But it's mine. Every corner of it is mine. Every breath I take there is a reminder that I am no longer asking someone else for permission to exist. And that feels like peace.